Hi there, I'm Flora, Portside High School cheerleading captain and beauty pageant queen. My natural beauty and charisma mean that everyone's drawn to me, but hey, I don't make it easy for them. I only allow a select few to get close to me, as I can't be seen associating with just anyone. Only my classmate Nina is pretty enough to have the coveted position of my BFF. Birds of a feather flock together, right? My high school life was perfect. But then, in the space of one day, that all changed. The principal, Mrs. Harrington, told me that due to my cheerleading abilities, I'd won a scholarship to the ACL Academy, a boarding school for the athletically gifted, and I was leaving today! Huh? This made no sense! I mean, I don't even do sports! I rushed straight home to discuss it with my mom and found her sitting on the couch surrounded by a load of shopping bags. Yep, she'd already spent the scholarship money before I'd even found out the news. I know Mom loves money, but how could she make such a huge decision about my life without discussing it with me first? Ugh. Looks like I had no choice but to leave Portside High behind and go to this stupid sports school. Whatever. I'm a skilled cheerleader after all. It'd be a breeze, right? Wrong. This new school sucked. On my very first day here, I was woken up at 6 a.m. and forced to run 5 laps around the stadium. God. Are these people superheroes or what? How are they able to run and laugh at the same time while I'm panting like crazy? I didn't have time to catch my breath when the teacher made us move to the gym to lift weights. After 3 hours in the hellish gym, I barely had time to digest my lunch before they steered me into the volleyball court. Yep, that's the sport Mom had registered me for. Ugh, this stupid sport. Finally, nighttime arrived, and I managed to crawl my aching body back to my dorm. God save me from this living nightmare. Suddenly, the door opened, and in stepped my 3 roomies, aka my volleyball teammates. Honestly, I don't even know if I could call them girls or not. One has super short cropped bangs, one doesn't say much and shuffles more than walks, and one wears clothes so baggy they resemble a tent. Obviously, I'm way out of their league. And you know what they all have in common? They're always sweaty. So gross. Come to think of it, I have to go take a shower ASAP. Otherwise, I might turn into one of them. Fresh out of the shower, I called Nina and blurted out how exhausted I was and how much I missed our school. Poor you, you must be so tired. Oh, by the way, I have some amazing news to tell you. There's a city beauty pageant coming up, and I'm representing the school. What? But I won the school beauty contest. Yeah, you did. But you don't attend Portside High anymore, so seeing as I came second, they've given me the spot. Too bad, as you definitely would have won. What? How unfair! I was still in shock when the dorm supervisor stormed in and took away my phone. Yeah, I forgot to mention. This school even has a strict 10 p.m. phones away and lights off rule. It's all because they believe health is the most precious thing for an athlete. I tossed and turned all night. This beauty pageant was massive, and there's no way I could miss it. But I'm not at Portside High anymore. Instead, I'm stuck in this dumb jock academy. If only I could get out of here. That's right. I have a brilliant idea. I need to get expelled. So, I decided to skip practice and go cause some havoc for 3 days straight. I poured paint into the pool, cut off the badminton strings, deflated all of the soccer balls, and of course, I made sure that the security cameras caught it all. And as expected, the principal eventually called me into his office. Yes, this was the moment I was waiting for. Soon I could pack and get out of here. Only the rest didn't exactly go to plan. If it had not been for Mrs. Harrington. 2 laps of frog jumps around the soccer field, now! What? Frog jumps? I hate those things! Why couldn't he just kick me out already? But wait, what does Mrs. Harrington have to do with this? After my punishment, I needed to vent. So, hugging my aching thighs, I called Nina to complain about my failed plan. And she just burst out laughing. Oh, Flora, those outdated tricks were never gonna work. You have to do something bold, like, oh my God, Nina is a genius. The next night, following Nina's instructions, I sneaked out when everyone was asleep. That's right, I'm going to wake the whole school up with these firecrackers. I lit one in the dorm's backyard, then ran to hide behind the bushes. 3, 2, 1, and silence. Huh? I went back to check and saw that it had gone out. What's wrong? Is this one broken? I tried again and again, but the same thing happened each time. As if a ghost did it? Just the thought of it sent chills down my spine, so I sprinted right back to my room. Okay, so not only had my plan been a massive fail, but it had left me super tired. Needless to say, this morning's run was not fun. Zombie alert! How come they look even more exhausted than me?
Hey, have you guys heard about the doomed jock? He's the ghost in the dorm's backyard. Allegedly, he attended this academy years ago, and he exercised himself to death right there in the dorm's backyard. So now he haunts it.
What was she talking about? Could it be the one who messed with me yesterday was the doomed jock? I couldn't just give up like that. I needed to figure out a way to get out of this awful place before this ghost got me. How about starting a fight? I heard that the fencing team and basketball team were the 2 toughest groups in the school. So, I sprayed paint on their fencing masks and punctured all of the basketballs, and left a fencing sword at the scene. Then I wrote both teams an anonymous letter. Sunday, 2 p.m., abandoned building near the back gate. When Sunday came, I hid in the abandoned house and waited for the 2 groups to arrive. Look at their tense faces. This was going to be fun. I quickly called the cops and then took advantage of the chaos to blend in with the feuding teams. I almost got punched in the face when, fortunately, the cops got there just in time, causing everyone to frantically flee the scene. I happily ran to a cop. It's me! I started this fight. But, to my surprise, the cop just asked if I was hurt. Then he hurriedly chased after the gang. Only then I realized that if I wanted to be caught, I had to do exactly what they did. Run away. Oh, man. I was staggering my way back to the dormitory, feeling deflated, when I spotted the fencing and basketball teams coming my way. Freaked out, I looked around for a place to hide, but there was only one car parked on the side of the road. With no other way, I ventured to open the car door and, it wasn't locked. I quickly jumped in, hid under the back seat, and lay completely still. At that moment, the car door swung open. I closed my eyes and braced myself to catch some hands when suddenly the car revved up and left. Looking up, I saw the principal sitting in the driver's seat, whistling happily. Oh, so it was his car. After a while, the car stopped in front of a bar in town. Didn't expect a serious man like him to go to such places. But wait, an underage student being caught by the principal here would surely get me expelled, right? With that in mind, I hurriedly followed him, but at the door, a security guard stopped me and asked for my ID card. I had no idea what to do when suddenly a strange guy appeared.
Hey, cutie. Need an ID card? How about this? I'll lend you a fake ID to get in. In exchange, you must go out with me tonight. Sounds good, huh?
Well, I didn't plan on sticking around for long, as I would just get in, find the principal, and get caught right away anyway. So I nodded in agreement. I was about to take the ID card from him when someone yanked me back and pushed me into a cab. My roommates! What are you doing here? Do you know you've just ruined my plan and—
Ruined? Who's the one causing trouble here? Do you honestly believe that if you get expelled like that, your old school will take you back? Fat chance.
Huh? How'd you know that I'm trying to get expelled? Turns out my roommates overheard the conversation between me and Nina. It was them who extinguished my firecrackers in the campus backyard, then made up the doomed jock ghost story to make me stay away from there. Then, when the basketball and fencing teams searched for me, it was them who lied that I was with them all day so I could get away with it. But what did you do that for?
Don't get us wrong. We didn't do it for you. We did it to protect the school's reputation.
Then they started telling me that, for the last few years, due to bad achievements, our school was on the chopping block to make space for industrial areas. The only way to convince the city council to keep our school was by winning the state's upcoming sports competition.
We've all played sports for all of our lives. Sport is everything to us. If our school closes, we don't know where we'd go.
That's why when we saw you being lazy and messing about, we couldn't just sit back and watch.
Oh, I had no idea about this. Suddenly, I felt so guilty. I mean, of course I don't want to ruin their futures. I then also opened up to them and told them all about the beauty pageant. They insisted there must be a way to join the pageant without returning to my old school. So they searched around on Google, and guess what? Turns out the pageant accepts free candidates too, which means no school registration needed. What else could I wish for? I immediately signed up for it, and as a thank you to my new friends, I started making an effort at playing volleyball. I'm a tall girl, so my training position is a right side hitter. And you know what? There is this satisfaction whenever I was able to block a ball. Not gonna lie, this is much more interesting than I thought. That weekend, I went to the city to pick out some dresses for the beauty contest. I found myself immersed in racks of gorgeous gowns when a familiar voice startled me.
How about this one, Mom?
Stunning, sweetie. You're the most beautiful girl in this world. I don't know what possessed them to pick Flora over you. But no need to worry this time, as I have sent her far away.
Yeah, that's where she belongs. I'll show them who's the true beauty queen now.
What? No way! My old school principal is Nina's mom? And transferring me to the sports academy was part of her plan, just so her daughter could go to the pageant? I was fuming, so as soon as Mrs. Harrington went outside to take a call, I walked straight over to confront Nina. I can't believe you're like that! Nina looked shocked at first, but then smirked as she said,
Like what? Like someone who's far prettier, more talented, and crown-worthy than you? Thanks, sporty girl.
I shoved past her and stormed out of there. Wait for it, Nina. We'll soon see who the real winner is. The next few weeks were crazy busy with volleyball practice and the pageant preparations. I may have only been a reserve, but I still wanted to give it my all to motivate the team. The sports competition soon arrived, and after 2 days of competing, the fate of the school came down to the final match. Our volleyball game! Talk about intense. It sucked it was on the same day as the beauty pageant, as I would have loved to be able to cheer them on from the player bench. But then, disaster struck. The girl who plays right side hitter sprained her wrist and couldn't play. The whole team looked so worried, and that made my heart ache. There was only one thing for it. I'd replace her. If I was quick, I could still make it to the beauty pageant afterward. Come on, Flora. Stay focused. Just 1 point left, and we'd win. Suddenly, the ball came flying at me. This was it. I hit it with all my might and... Score! We won! I was busy celebrating our victory when everyone suddenly asked me about the beauty pageant. Oh my God! I almost forgot! The match went on longer than I thought it would. My friends dragged me into the taxi, but when we got there, the show was already coming to an end. And worst of all, guess who was standing there wearing the winner's crown and looking all smug? Yep, Nina.
Did you come to congratulate me? Thanks, bestie. Oh, you guys must be Flora's new friends. That figures.
How cute. Stop the act, Nina. Yes, they are my friends. They're not fake, and they're 1,000 times more interesting than you.
Say whatever you want, but I'm a beauty queen now, and you're no longer at the same level as me.
My friends started clenching their fists, so I quickly pulled them away before anything happened. Right at that time, an announcement came across the speaker.
Attention, pageants! We've just discovered signs of voter fraud. Please stay inside the hall and await further confirmation.
About 30 minutes later, the truth finally came out. Turns out, Nina's mom had paid for the voting texts. Needless to say, Nina had her crown taken off her immediately, and Mrs. Harrington also lost her principal job. What goes around comes around, right? As for me, I'm not bothered about beauty pageants anymore. Instead, I have a new hobby, volleyball. Turns out I'm pretty good at it, and who knows, I might even become a professional player? And you know what the best part of all this is? I now have true friends by my side who I know will be willing to help me anytime and anywhere.
Hi, I'm Ella, and I'm 17. Have you ever been brave enough to change the things that you were too familiar with? If yes, did you encounter any difficulties? Well, for me, yeah. It's more than just changes. And this is the story of what happened to me last summer. And it's really crazy, so brace yourself. So, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. When I say small, I mean it. It only had a population of 85 people. There was just one gas station, 2 small parks, 1 grocery store, and oh yeah, only 1 school. Including me, there were only 7 kids in my grade. That's right, 7 people. And my grade was one of the biggest ones. From when I was 5 years old to the time I was 15, I spent most of my time with the same 6 classmates. After being with them for many years, most of them really started to get on my nerves. Well, apart from Rosie. Rosie and I became BFFs in 3rd grade. Some other kids were teasing me about my red hair and told me that I looked like a tomato. But then Rosie appeared by my side and told them to back off. From then on, we became best friends and were pretty much inseparable. My life was good. I felt safe in my little town where everyone knew each other. In a city, there were way too many people for my liking, and too much pressure to be popular. And I didn't want that. I knew a small town life was the life for me. But then, when I was 16, everything changed. On one Saturday afternoon, I was at Rosie's house watching a movie when my parents called me and told me to come home at once. I thought this was kind of weird because my parents didn't usually call me to come home until it was late at night. And right now it was only 4:30 p.m. What did they need me to come home for? I arrived home to find Jake, my brother, crying. I bursted out loud. What happened? What was going on? Seeing me totally in shock, my dad said, Ella, we have some news. What news was bad enough to make my brother, who wasn't the emotional type, cry? Did someone have a serious illness? Had someone died? Oh no. Had my beloved dog Sally died? Then he said, Ella, I've been offered a job in New York City. What? I yelled. And he's taking it. This is an amazing opportunity for us all. And moving out of this town will be good for us. It'll be a great adventure, Mom said. New York? The biggest city in the entire country? No, I couldn't move there. I didn't want a new adventure. I was perfectly happy where we lived now, and I didn't want to leave. But however much I sulked, shouted, or pleaded with my parents to stay, their minds were made up, and we were moving. Telling Rosie was horrible. She got so upset, and I felt awful about it. I didn't want to leave her, but what choice did I have? I spent my last day in town with her. We ate pizza, watched our favorite movies, played our favorite video games, and things like that. When it was time for me to leave, I gave her my unicorn plushie to remember me by. Then we cried into each other's arms and we promised to text each other every single day. So, I left the safety of my little town and moved to the city. Our new house was much smaller than my old one, but at least we could keep Sally. On my first day of school, I was terrified. There were so many people and I didn't know where I was meant to go or what I was meant to do. Luckily, the kids there were actually really nice. This one girl showed me where my locker was, and some other kids let me sit with them at lunchtime. After only a few weeks of living in New York, I started to find my bearings. I even figured out how to navigate the underground. I made some pretty great friends, but this didn't change the fact that Rosie was still my BFF. I texted her every day, and sometimes we spent hours on the phone with each other. A month of city life passed, and I got talking to this boy in my English class called Alex. He had the most amazing blonde hair, and his eyes, they were blue like the sky and the ocean, and a swimming pool, and yeah, if you couldn't tell, I really liked Alex. Not only was he unbelievably cute, but he was also kind and funny. We bonded over our love of video games and dogs, and soon became pretty close. Then one day, he invited me over to his apartment to hang out. Then over a giant pizza and a movie, he told me he liked me and asked me to be his girlfriend. I instantly said yes! I was so excited and couldn't wait to tell Rosie, but she didn't seem all that thrilled about it. For a few months, everything was perfect for me. School life was great, and I had some awesome friends and an amazing boyfriend. Sadly, though, Rosie and I grew further apart. I barely had time to talk to her hours on the phone every night. It was like our timeline became different. She always called when I was busy, and when I texted her back, she wasn't there. I know that she always cared about me, but my busy life just carried me away. I told myself this was okay as things change. People get different friends. Though not as often as before, Rosie and I still chatted whenever we had a chance. One time I told her that I would be going out with Alex at a fancy restaurant the next day. Anytime I mentioned Alex, she seemed not cool with it. But that time she expressed her excitement and asked me a lot about our date. That made me feel so good. When the day came, I went to meet Alex at the restaurant that he had booked for us. I entered and waited for about 20 minutes for him to show. I began to get impatient and asked a waiter if he'd seen a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes come in at all. The waiter told me he had, but he'd left with a tall girl with long brown hair and brown eyes. What? Who was the girl he left with? And why? I thought of everyone I knew who fit that description. I couldn't think of anyone, except for Rosie. But she lived in Pennsylvania. Why would she be here talking to my boyfriend? I decided to call Alex, but he sounded muffled, and I heard a girl talking in the background. It sounded like they were arguing, and then the call ended. This was so weird. What happened? I had no idea what was going on, so I headed home. On my way, I felt like someone was following me. And then I realized that there was one car driving very slowly after me. When I tried stopping, it also stopped. Oh my God. Was it having anything to do with me? I felt terrified and started to run as quick as I could until I reached my house. I turned back and saw that car parked outside my house. I was shaking as I tried to open the door. And as I did, Sally zoomed past me and ran toward the car. I had only seen her act that way whenever Alex came over. She really liked Alex. Wait, Alex? That was it. Alex was in that car. Was it a prank? I ran over to see what the heck was going on. There, sitting in the driver's seat, was Rosie. And to my complete shock, Alex was tied up in the back seat. Rosie! I screamed. What are you doing here in New York with my boyfriend? Alex screamed, Help! She told me you were waiting for me in her car, then she kidnapped me. Rosie quickly turned around and looked me right in the face. Hi, Ella. What are you doing with my boyfriend? He's not a good guy for you, Ella. I need you to break up with him now, or else I will drive away so you can never find him ever. Are you crazy? We will not break up just because you demand me to do that. Now let him go. I walked around to the passenger door to get Alex, but then the car started moving, fast. I ran after the car, but I was too slow. But Sally ran after it too, and she didn't stop. She almost got hit by cars as she ran through traffic until she was out of sight. I was so scared. I was about to call the cops when I saw a police car zoom past me. How did they know about this already? Who called 911? I looked back and saw my mom standing outside with the phone waving at me nervously. She had seen all the commotion and called the cops. Thanks, Mom. There was nothing I could do now except wait. It was awful. I was so anxious. About an hour later, a cop car pulled up to our house. The cop stepped out and opened the back door, and out came Sally. I ran up to the police car and hugged Sally. She was safe. But what about Alex? The officer told me that they'd chased the car for almost 2 miles until they cornered it on a dead-end street. He said that Rosie was very fierce and tried resisting arrest, but they'd taken her to the station. To my relief, Alex was fine, and they dropped him back home. Phew. I just didn't understand it. Rosie was my best friend. Why would she try to seriously harm my boyfriend? I later found out that Rosie was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It's a disorder that causes people to go through extreme mood swings and do things that are out of character and crazy. Rosie had a lot going on. As well as me not being around anymore, her dad had moved out. I didn't know this as she hadn't told me. Back then, I wasn't talking all that much to her, but I'd never expected that the separation Rosie felt was too much for her and could lead her to bipolar disorder. I was her only one at that time, so she wanted her to be my only one too. But Alex appeared and made her feel insecure and seriously jealous. It is fortunate there are no serious consequences. I really hope Rosie gets the proper treatment for her disorder. We might not be as close anymore, but in my eyes, she'll always be the girl who was there for me when I was being teased, and I will always regret that I wasn't there to listen to her more when she needed me. I still feel sad about it all, but I'm trying to see the positives. Things with Alex are going great, and I'm happy here. It turns out city life is for me after all. Whether it's in friendship or love, people still need their own space. And sometimes, as sad as it is, people do grow apart. This happens in life. Being overjealous doesn't help mend things. It just pushes the other person further away.
Have you ever met someone and known instantly that they are the one for you? I wish I'd realized sooner so that my teenage years hadn't been so full of drama and heartbreak. But you live and learn, right? And better late than never. By the way, I'm Versalise, and I'm 24 years old. It all began 14 years ago when I moved to New York and started at a new school. At that time, I assumed that moving from my hometown in France to New York would be no big deal. My mom and I were super excited and truly believed it would change our lives. Indeed, it did, but not in the ways I ever expected. On my first day at my new school, my mother insisted on driving me to school. When we arrived, I gave my mom a kiss on both of her cheeks and waved goodbye. My mom joked that she'd sort out any of the kids who dared to mess with me. I did feel quite shy, but I thought she was just joking. Turns out she wasn't. At lunchtime, I sat down at a random table, and suddenly this girl appeared and said, "What do you think you're playing at, sitting at our table?" I didn't even have time to reply before she picked up my lunch tray and threw it off the table right into the trash can. "I said, move," she said. Everyone was staring at us now. I was so upset, I just covered my face. I didn't want to be that crybaby in front of all these new people, but I couldn't help it. The tears started falling. Then something crazy happened. A voice boomed out through the cafeteria, saying, "Get away from her!" And then, the next moment, I felt a hand reach out for my hand, and when I looked up, this gorgeous, tall boy was standing there looking at me when he picked me up on my feet. "Excuse me," the girl started, but the boy continued, "What is wrong with you? Do you have a screw loose or something? Your attitude is so gross. It'll make me puke. You disgust me, and I don't want to be friends with someone like you." She stood there with her mouth wide open as he grabbed my hand and walked away. I could hear her scoff from behind me, but her facial expression looked as if she'd lost. I took his hand and followed him out of the cafeteria, and that's when he introduced himself as Ryder. We sat down outside, and he asked me if I was new around here, and then he told me he loved my accent. And he even offered me half of his baguette and said, "Hey, come on, chin up. I'll be your friend, okay?" The best part is that the girl who bullied me had a major crush on him, so she was probably even angrier at me now. But I didn't care one bit. After that, I can't remember a time when we were apart. We were glued at the hip and did everything together. He taught me how to skateboard, and I taught him how to bake my famous pastries. We were like the dream team. He made me laugh so much, and he helped me become more confident. Day by day, I could tell I wanted to be more than just his friend, but I didn't dare tell him that. Then my 12th birthday rolled around, and my mom gave me a diary. She told me to write down all of my thoughts, and even my crushes so that I could reflect back on it one day. Then she winked at me and walked away. Ew, what was she talking about? I didn't have a crush. Did I? Okay, who am I kidding? I had the biggest crush ever on Ryder. Every time I saw him, I felt like there were a million butterflies in my stomach, and I woke up excited every day because I knew I'd get to see him. And then the time came for our school dance, and my friends were teasing me that I should go with Ryder. I kept telling them he was just my friend, but I couldn't fool them. They saw right through me. Later that day, Ryder invited me over to play video games, and as we were playing, he said, "Hey, wanna go to the dance with me?" I couldn't believe it. My heart was thumping in my chest, but I tried to play it cool and said, sure, I guess. And you know what? We had the best time ever at the dance. I was for sure on cloud 9, and afterwards I decided to journal about it in my diary. I never wanted to forget that night. So I wrote pages upon pages of how Ryder made me feel and how I loved him so much. Little did I know how everything was about to change. A few days later, Ryder came over to my house, and as soon as I saw him, I had the biggest grin on my face. But quickly that grin faded when Ryder said he had something to tell me. I have some bad news. My family and I are moving to London in a month. This is a joke, right? Come on, stop playing around, I said, trying to hide the worry in my voice. But he just stayed quiet, and by then I knew he wasn't joking. I couldn't hold back the tears, and Ryder just reached out and held me in his arms, comforting me. He told me it would be okay, and we'd still keep in touch, but I felt like my whole world was crumbling around me. This was the worst news of my life. We decided to make our last month together the most fun we'd ever had. We went surfing, skateboarding, stargazing, and even did karaoke. I never wanted that month to end, but of course, it did. On our last night together, we had a slumber party and stayed up all night waiting for the sun to rise. When it came time to say goodbye, he gave me a framed photo of the two of us and said if I ever felt sad, I could just look at it and remember the happy times. I wanted to tell him how I felt, but I couldn't, and so he left. I was so down that I ran upstairs and covered myself under the blanket and cried. Later that night, as usual, I was about to write my day in my diary when it was nowhere to be seen. I shouted at my mom and blamed her, but she just said I must have misplaced it. Now I had no Ryder and no diary. My life sucked. Summer quickly ended and it was time for high school. Even though I had my friends, my life wasn't the same without Ryder. But life goes on, and so eventually I tried to move on from Ryder. My friends told me that this guy Lucas had always had a crush on me, and maybe I should give him a chance. Well, soon we started dating, and even though I didn't have the same special connection with him as I had with Ryder, it was still fun, and it took my mind off of things. Fast forward 7 years, and Lucas and I were still together. The relationship wasn't great, but I had my dream job and was living in my dream loft apartment, so I couldn't complain too much. Plus, Ryder had drifted away from my mind. I decided it was time to really put some work into my relationship with Lucas. So one night, I told him I was working late and booked us a surprise trip to Paris. When I got home, I was so excited to tell Lucas, so I ran up to our bedroom, and to my complete horror, I found him lying in our bed kissing another girl. They didn't even notice me at first. So I screamed, "What are you doing?" Well, that got their attention, and the girl ran off. I thought Lucas would apologize, but he just said, "What do you expect? You won't give me what I want, and you make me wait for marriage." Then he stomped out of the room and said, "I can have any girl I want." I was so shocked. I just dropped to the floor and burst into tears. Finally, he showed me his true colors, and so I kicked him out. The next few weeks were some of the worst of my life, even worse than when Ryder moved to London. I felt so stupid for wasting so much time with Lucas. One night, I was particularly sad, and I suddenly remembered the framed photo Ryder had given me. I dug it out of the back of my wardrobe and held it close to my heart. My friends called me, tried to get me to go out with them. They did everything to help lift my mood up, but I wasn't interested. I just needed time alone to process everything. I thought to myself about how the only person I wanted to see now was Ryder, but where was he? How was he doing? I had no idea at all. Another depressing week went by. I was lounging on my couch, soullessly staring at the TV in boredom. Then suddenly there was a knock at the door. I went to open it, and oh my God, Ryder was standing there. Was this real or was I hallucinating? I was so surprised I just jumped into his arms and didn't want to let go. We must have stood there hugging for ages. And then suddenly Ryder said, "I have something of yours." When I let go of him, he was holding my diary. Turns out Ryder had been in touch with my mom, and when she told him about my cheating boyfriend, he decided to come to New York and cheer me up. And then reality hit. He'd taken my diary? What if he'd read it? Well, he had, and he said that's why he'd come to see me, because he wanted to talk to me about it all. I was blushing like crazy. And then he said, "I've always loved you, V. Even when we were kids, I've never stopped thinking about you, and I want to be with you." Then he reached over and kissed me, and I swear time just stopped. I'd been waiting for this moment my whole life. That week was like a haze of kissing and chatting and catching up on lost time. He told me about his ex-girlfriends, and I told him about Lucas and the cheating. Then I plucked up the courage and asked him if he'd like to go to Paris with me, seeing as the trip was already booked. Of course, he said yes, and the next week we flew there and had the best week of our entire lives. We went to the Eiffel Tower and even visited my old neighborhood where I'd grown up. It was magical. And then one day, Ryder said he had to do a bit of work and told me to go pamper myself at a local spa. When I was done, I had a text from him asking to meet him on the roof of our hotel. He was so romantic like that. I first went back to the hotel room where he'd laid out a black sparkly dress for me to wear, and then I headed up to the roof. I couldn't believe it! There were almost 1,000 roses laid out to form a path, and at the end of the path was Ryder wearing a suit. "I love you, V," he began to say. "I always have, and I can't imagine a life without you. Will you marry me?" I gasped in shock and screamed, "Yes," at the top of my voice. I'd loved him ever since I was a kid, and now my dream of being together forever had finally come true. I guess it took us some time to reach this point, but the best things in life are worth waiting for, right?
Hey, my name is Erin, and as you can see, I'm just your normal 18-year-old college girl. But my friends who know me well know that I'm not a girly girl. If given the choice of a shopping trip or beer pong, well, then there's no contest. All through high school, I was known as the prank queen. One time, this girl teased me about my sneakers, so I put a real-life spider in her lunchbox. She totally freaked out. It was so funny. Another time, my teacher gave me a totally unjust C on my essay. So when she wasn't looking, I placed her coffee mug upside down. As soon as she picked up the mug, coffee spilled all over the table and her clothes. I ended up with a week's worth of detention for that, but it was so worth it. So, yeah, even though I was out of high school now, my mischievous nature wasn't going anywhere. I didn't even feel like I needed to change or be more mature because my life was still going perfect. I always had my longtime boyfriend Zach and my bestie Jace on my side. We went to the same college together. Me and Jace even moved out to live independently. Trust me, college life was worth 12 years of waiting. I'm a sociable and active girl, while Zach is pretty handsome and great at sports, so we soon became a popular and beloved couple at college. We were even given prom king and prom queen crowns for freshmen. I could see people admired us any time we were together. It was like our love was a typical relationship that they always wished for. Only I knew that deep down inside, Zach's feelings for me were changing. We seemed to argue all the time, and at the root of it was the fact that I wasn't gentle like most other girls. Ugh. He used to see me as the most interesting and attractive girl in the world. What happened? Once, he took me to a party to celebrate his basketball team's win. We cheered a lot, and at a point I was so excited that I jumped on the table and drank wine with the boys. Everyone around was cheering with joy, but Zach wasn't happy. Then later, when I was getting in his car ready for him to drive me home, I asked him, "What's wrong? Aren't you happy you won?" He replied,
"You're an embarrassment. No one else's girlfriend was downing wine and cheering at the top of their voice. Why can't you just be gentle, like your friend Jace?"
I was fuming. So fuming, in fact, that I got out of his car, slammed the door shut, and walked home. It was such an outrage comparing me with another girl. Not to mention that Jace is the complete opposite of me. She's super quiet and introverted. You know what they say, opposites attract. This is so true, as Jace and I are the best of friends. But there's no way I could be gentle like her. If he wanted me to be more like her, why didn't he consider himself to be as sweet and smart as her boyfriend, Jay? I arrived home to find Jace sitting in tears on her bed. Oh, my gentle, weak girl. That night must be Black Friday for both of us. So I hugged her and asked her what was wrong. She replied, "Jay's changed, Aaron. He doesn't like my meekness and wants a more vibrant relationship. In fact, he wants me to be more like you. He said I should be active and strong like you are. Now I don't know what to do." I said, "Oh, God, boys are so confusing." You know what? Zach said the same thing to me. He wants me to be gentle like you. Jace looked at me with surprising eyes. Really? He did? I know, so hilarious, right? We have to do something to make them realize our true value. But what can we do? And once again, my prank-minded brain came up with an extraordinary idea. And I told her, "I know, Jace. We can swap boyfriends." "No, Aaron, I don't like Zach. And from when you have eyes for Jay?" Hey, don't get it wrong. I just want my Zach. So here's the plan. We will annoy our boyfriends so they won't want to hang out with us for a few days. Then we'll take this time to strike and flirt with each other's boyfriends. Then, just when they thought they're getting close to us, we'll be super annoying. Then they'll realize just how amazing their actual girlfriends are. Talk about an amazing plan, huh? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Jace was hesitant at first, but she eventually came up with my prank. As usual, our boys would soon come back as their old selves. I put my part of the plan into action by asking Zach over to watch the new episode of his favorite show on Netflix. Then, during the show, I ate popcorn really loudly, then continued to make comments and laugh while he was trying to concentrate. Eventually, he snapped and said, "Are you crazy? I'm trying to watch this." I replied, "What? You can't stand me anymore or something?" We argued a little bit, then he said, "You know what? You're annoying. Why can't you be nice, delicate, and gentle for just a moment?" Then he stormed out of the room and left. I immediately texted Jace. Mission completed. As for Jace, she went out with Jay. But whenever he asked her what she wanted to do or eat, etc., she replied, "Whatever," to everything. It soon drove him crazy because he didn't know what to do to please her. That was classic. When Jace kept shaking her head when he gave her options for what to eat, he got furious and drove her straight home. OMG, I couldn't stop laughing. So the first step was successful. Next, we needed to approach each other's boyfriends. A couple of days later, I found an excuse to meet Jay. He was a computer genius, so I messaged him on Facebook. "Hi, Jay. You know a lot about computers, right? Can you help me, as my laptop won't connect to the Wi-Fi and I have an assignment due?" Then he replied, Sure. Just take a picture of it and send it over." So I replied, "Can I bring it to your place? You gotta help me. I don't know what to do." Well then, of course, he said yes. So I wore a cute outfit and went over there. I kept touching his arm and praising him. Then, when he became more open to me, I started to tell him how lonely and empty I was, as Zach and I were over. "Oh yeah? How come?" He raised an eyebrow. I sighed out. "He thinks I'm too loud and boisterous." I tried to fake my tears. "Am I annoying, Jay?" He was surprised. "No, you're not. You're an active, outgoing, and interesting girl. Don't let his judgment bother you." Ha! So my tears worked. So I just pretended to cry harder. He frantically said he knew how to cheer me up. Then he took me to the amusement park. I laughed loudly in the middle of the roller coaster queue, let my ice cream smudge my face, and intentionally didn't wipe it clean. Then I demanded he win me a teddy on the beanbag throwing stall game. But every time he threw the beanbag, I shouted out and clung onto his arm. I knew boys hate being stuck and nagging all day. Like, really, really hate it. Soon, he would realize how awesome Jace was. Talking about Jace, she came to find Zach at the gym, but pretended like it was just a chance meeting. She asked him to show her how a treadmill worked, then used the same way as mine for Zach to ask her out. They went to the cinema to cheer her up. She refused to see the action film he was longing to see, as it was too noisy, said no to any movie he suggested, then eventually ended up in a chick flick. But right at the climax of the film, she complained it was too dark and crowded in there, and made him leave early. How ridiculous! LOL. He must be so annoyed. Then I told her to hit Zach where it hurt, his basketball match. Jace convinced him to take her along to his game, but she just sat there scrolling through her phone instead of watching the match. She didn't cheer him when he won a point, and immediately after the game finished, she asked him to take her home, causing him to miss the post-game gathering. Good work, Jace. He'd come running back to me in no time. I know you're probably thinking this plan was crazy, but it really worked. Jace showed up on our doorstep with flowers for Jace. Their love story had been given the refreshment it needed. Now, I just had to wait for Zach to realize what he's been missing. Only, to my horror, Zach wasn't messaging me. He was still messaging Jace. She ended up sending a picture of her with Jay and told him she was happy with her boyfriend and didn't have time for annoying people like him. Then, the next day, Jace arrived home all flustered. She told me that Zach had been waiting for her outside of her class, then told her he wanted a chance to take her on a date. What? He was technically still my boyfriend. How could he do this to me? Worse still, he was ignoring all of my messages. So I showed up at his house and wouldn't budge until he answered the door. He looked sheepish as he said,
"Aaron, our relationship hit a dead end. You're acting ridiculous, and I know you hung out with another guy behind my back." Meanwhile, a wonderful girl came to see me play basketball instead of you. She's the girl for me, not you.
At this point, I had to say the truth. Zach, you don't know what you're talking about right now. Listen, it was all just a setup so you could see what you were missing. It's worked for Jace. Her relationship is stronger than ever. And to my surprise, he replied,
"I know. I overheard you discussing it with Jace in the library. At first, I found you so cute because you were trying to save our love, and I just wanted to please you, so I pretended not to know. But then, I realized something. I don't love you anymore. Instead, I love Jace. And thinking about it, I guess I have for a while. She's like a little, arrogant cat that I want to pamper and take care of. You know, I've always liked cats."
What? She's not even arrogant. She only acted that way as part of the plan, I shouted.
"I don't care. All I know is I love her, not you."
Ugh! I can't believe it. What have I done? Because of my stupid prank, I've lost my boyfriend to my best friend. What am I meant to do now?
Hey, it's Austin here again. So I met this hot girl called Darcy that I really like, and I think she really likes me too. But then a phone mix-up meant I had to date this cougar called Chelsea, who was also dating my friend Jake. I know, awkward. Things got even worse when Chelsea introduced me to her employees as her boyfriend. But then I saw Darcy standing there. Oh no. The girl I like works for Chelsea? This was bad. Really bad. Darcy looked so disappointed. Man, this sucked. For the rest of the date, I kept turning around to check on her. I even tried sending her a text to assure her it wasn't what it looked like. But this was tricky to do when Chelsea wouldn't take her eyes off of me. Do you know her? Darcy? You keep looking at her. So, is there something between you guys? I just shrugged and said, "Nah, she comes into the restaurant sometimes, that's all." She must have seen right through my words, as she smirked then said, "Is that so? Well, then you won't mind me firing her. Unless, of course, you continue to date me, but don't tell Jake or anyone about it. Deal?" Turns out Chelsea was even crazier than I thought. She was playing me and I didn't like it, not one bit. But I couldn't stand by and let Darcy lose her job because of me. I knew how much it meant to her. "Fine," I replied, "but no kissing or anything like that." She grinned back. "Whatever, you'll fall for my charm soon enough." As if. She was deluded, like I'd ever want to kiss someone who treated me like prey. Anyway, I only had to put up with this until Darcy finished her internship, then signed her contract. Later on, I texted Darcy explaining that Chelsea was just a friend and nothing more, but she didn't seem convinced. From then on, whenever she came into the restaurant, she barely met my eye. even when I gave her an extra slice of dessert. Ouch. Worse still, I kept on bumping into Darcy when I was on dates with Chelsea. Whether it was the coffee shop, walking the street, or going into a restaurant, she always seemed to be there to spot us. And Chelsea didn't help at all as she kept on clinging on to me and acted up when she noticed Darcy was around. Dating Chelsea was hard work. She just wouldn't quit pestering me. It felt like every time I wasn't working, she dragged me out to some posh restaurant or the theater or something. Yawn. When was she going to get the hint that I didn't have feelings for her? I hoped she'd figured it out soon enough, as things were getting awkward between me and Jake. I hated having to lie to him. Then he messaged me saying he was feeling really down, as he was pretty sure Chelsea was seeing some other dude. Aw man, why was I stuck in this mess? I messaged him back telling him she was probably just busy with work, and not to panic. Now all I needed to do was convince Chelsea to be a one-man woman and choose Jake. On our next date, Chelsea took me to this expensive Italian, and oh my God, the food was so good. But even that didn't make up for how tedious the date was. She just sat there staring at me like she wanted to eat me or something. It made me feel so uncomfortable. Later that night, I was at home watching a movie and wondering how I can end things with Chelsea when I heard an angry thud at my door. I opened it, and to my surprise, it was Jake. He yelled out, "I thought you didn't care about Chelsea. Guess you've seen me being well treated and now you want that too? Step aside." I tried telling him I didn't want her, but this only made him madder. What, so you don't want her, just her money? How can you do that to Chelsea? She's beautiful and smart and, Jake, she made me. If I don't do this, then she's going to fire Darcy. Oh, and set her brother on us both. She's got me on a string, bro. I had no choice. I sighed and looked away to avoid his eyes. Jake's face fell as he took in this news. Then he muttered out, "Oh well, I guess I knew what she was like." I felt bad for him, but what did he expect? Of course, she was only playing with him. And even he himself knew that he only had himself to blame for falling for her act. He said, "Right, whatever. She needs to learn a lesson at least. We can't just let her get off with this that easily. Anyway, she could only do harm to Darcy during this internship period, right? Yep, and not anymore when Darcy signs the contract in a month. Okay then, let's play some pranks on Chelsea. We'll let her experience one glorious month of a cheater." I was kinda excited about messing with Chelsea. She certainly deserved it for ruining my chances with Darcy. Let the fun begin. So Jake asked her to go on dates when he knew she was on dates with me. Then when she made up excuses, he rang her up and sobbed out how she never wanted to spend time with him anymore. Then another time when I was on a date with her, I went to the bathroom. Then Jake stormed into the restaurant and demanded to know what she was doing there. He made sure he left before I got back, but it was so funny walking over to the table and seeing her look all flustered. The problem was that as fun as these pranks on her were, they didn't change the fact I still had to date her. Then she told me I had to escort her to the swanky event dinner her company was having. The only exciting parts of the night were eating the food and, of course, seeing Darcy. Wow, nothing could prepare me for how stunning she looked. Unfortunately, Chelsea's brother Tim had noticed this too, and he kept on creeping around her. I saw him offer her drinks and put his arm around her. I wanted to go and drag her away from him so badly, but I had my own problems, as Chelsea led me from group to group and introduced me to them all as her boyfriend. Ugh. Finally, when Chelsea was in the bathroom, I managed to go over to Darcy. Only Tim was with her. He was kinda tipsy and was slurring out his words as he asked her to hang out with him and his friends after the event. Poor Darcy. She looked so uncomfortable. So I said, "Hey Darcy, Chelsea wants to talk to you. It sounds pretty urgent. She's waiting for you outside." I led the way. Then when we stepped outside and it was just the two of us, I said, "Sorry it took me so long to save you from that creep. Are you okay?" She couldn't even look me in the eye as she replied, "I can look after myself." Then she went to walk back inside, so I pulled her back and said, "Please, Darcy, wait. It's time I told you everything." So I told her all about the mishap with the phone on our first meeting in the coffee shop. How Chelsea forced me and Jake to date her. Then how she was threatening to fire Darcy if I didn't go on dates with her. At first, Darcy rolled her eyes and muttered, "Yeah, right." But after I mentioned the part about her job, she seemed to believe me. She let out a long sigh. Chelsea does talk about you all the time. Now I know why. Then she said I didn't need to do this for her anymore, as she didn't intend on staying at the company anyway. It was too toxic of an environment for her, and her colleagues treated her so badly just because she was a pretty newbie. Then she said the main reason why she didn't quit the internship was because of me. Every time she came to my restaurant, I would cheer her up and make her feel much better. Okay, so this counted as her confessing her feelings for me, right? Give me 1 week to do what I need to do. Then I'm leaving that awful place, she told me. That sounds doable. I smiled at her. I hugged her, then we went back inside as if nothing happened. The following week was so exciting. I couldn't wait till I could finally be with Darcy. I told Jake all about it, and he decided to play one last joke on Chelsea. And there's no way I was missing this one. So I hid around the corner and watched as he turned up her doorstep and told her he couldn't be with her anymore because he couldn't stop thinking about her brother Tim. The shock on her face was priceless. Then she started yelling at him that she didn't want him to contact her ever again and to stay away from her brother. We had such a laugh. Jake's my best friend, and I really do wish him all the best only. Hopefully now that Chelsea's out of his life, he can move on. And finally, Darcy quit her job, and now I can do what I first intended to do, before this phone and crazy woman mess got in the way. And that's to take the prettiest girl I've ever seen in my life on a date. It was just such a long and messy journey to get here. But good things take time, right?
Sometimes in life, we have a chance encounter with someone who ends up changing our life. This is exactly what happened to me, and it was totally unexpected. You see, I was pretty lonely at the time. I'm Amelia, by the way, and I'm 20 years old. I was living all on my own in a tiny house in Portland. It was my mom's house, but she sadly passed away from cancer 2 years ago. I'm not going to say that life was easy for me, because it wasn't. All I wanted was to become a comic book artist. I love art so much, but the only way I could make this dream a reality was to make money. Ever since graduating from high school, I'd been working as a waitress to make ends meet, and also to save up enough cash to enroll in art college. Honestly, this job got me through the hardest time in my life. The days, weeks, and months after my mom passed away were so painful, and the restaurant kept me busy, so I barely had time to sit with all my feelings. Moreover, little did I know how much this waitressing job would change my life forever. It all started with an incident in the restaurant. I'll never forget that day. I was carrying a tray of food when I accidentally spilled some water onto the shoes of some fancy girl. Oh my god, she went crazy. She started screaming at me, and even though I frantically apologized right away, she still asked to speak to my manager. I leapt down and tried to clean the water off her shoes with a cloth, and that's when I heard a voice.
Hey, stop! What do you think you're doing?
I looked up and saw the boy she was with staring at me. He looked disgusted at me, and then said to the girl,
Babe, let's bounce before that waitress ruins your shoes even more with her filthy hands. Come on, let's hit the mall. I'll buy you a new pair of shoes.
Clearly, he was her boyfriend, and as soon as he mentioned new shoes, her eyes sparkled with joy as she said, Yay, babe! I want a new bag too, though. Could you?
And her boyfriend just laughed and said, Anything you want, my princess.
They got up to leave and smirked at me as they walked away. I couldn't believe how rude they were, especially the boy. I felt so angry. I wished I could slap him right across that cocky face. But of course, I didn't. There was no way I could risk losing my job. But I knew that if I ever saw his face again, I'd definitely give him a piece of my mind. And, well, believe it or not, I did indeed see him again. The world works in mysterious ways, and I guess we were destined to meet again. A few weeks after that, one evening, I was heading home and passed by the park to feed the stray cats as usual. While I was playing with them, I noticed some guy heading towards me. Suddenly, he grabbed my arms and pulled me towards him. I started shouting at him and trying to push him away, but he was too strong. Then, out of nowhere, someone said,
"What's going on? I'm trying to sleep over here. Keep it down."
A drunk, dirty-looking homeless guy walked towards us, and for a second I was terrified. But then I realized he was helping me. He started shouting at the guy holding on to me, saying,
"Hey you! Are you deaf or something? Let her go and keep silent."
The jerk was getting heated, and the next moment, he punched that homeless guy in the face, and then they started fighting. Then I freaked out and didn't know what to do. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and played a recording of a police siren. I live alone, so I know all the tricks. Well, that did it. The jerk who'd grabbed me suddenly jumped up and sprinted out of the park. The homeless guy who'd helped me was still lying on the ground, so I helped him up. He was black and blue, and there were even some scratches on his face, and as I got closer to him, I realized he looked familiar. OMG! Wasn't he the rude guy from the restaurant? What was he doing looking all dirty like a homeless guy? He had his eyes closed, so I patted his face and said, "Hey, wake up! What are you doing out here?" He opened his eyes and asked,
"Do I know you?"
He stared at me for a while, then eyeing my uniform and smiled.
"Oh, the little waitress. Guess what? I'm poorer than you now."
Then he passed out. I was so annoyed that I'd bumped into him again. I was about to leave him lying there, but then I realized he'd saved me, and I could hardly leave him there with all his injuries. So, yeah, in the end, I decided to take him back to my place to get my first aid kit. I cleaned up his scratches, and then let him crash on my sofa. The next morning, he was super surprised when he woke up. I told him what had happened and that he'd saved my life, so I saved his. Then I said he should probably head home now, but he just stared at me. And that's when he told me his story. He really was homeless. His parents had kicked him out because they'd found out he wasn't their biological son. What on earth? How could any parent do that? It's not like he has tricked them, but it was due to some mix-up at birth. So, wasn't he also a victim? I felt sorry for him, but still, it was none of my business. I had to get to work, so I asked him to leave, but he begged me to let him stay. I just looked at him in shock and said, how about you go to your rich girlfriend's place instead? I really need to get going now. But he didn't budge. He said,
"Oh, don't even mention that gold digger. She only cared about me when I was the only son of a millionaire. Now that I've got nothing, not a cent, she broke up with me."
Wow, shocker. But, well, it's not like I couldn't tell that she has a lousy personality right from the get-go. So I said, "Well, what about your friends? Can't you crash with them?" But he said no. It started to frustrate me. So I said, "You can't stay here. I don't even know a thing about you." Then he splurted out,
"Hi, I'm Jude. I'm 22 years old, I've got all my fingers and toes, and my criminal record is clean. There you go. Now you know me."
And he topped it off with a grin, as if that could win me over. He then went on to say that he'd pay rent, and that when he found a job and stuff, he'd leave. I hesitated. I mean, I couldn't live with a strange guy. But then I thought about that extra money I'd get if he helped with rent. I could really use that money for my college fees. He could see I wasn't sure, so he said,
"Come on, please. I mean, I did save your life last night."
"But there's only one bedroom," I said.
"Don't worry, I'll sleep here."
He pointed at the sofa. I thought for a while, then nodded my head and agreed. "And only for 1 month, okay?" Then I made him shower and change his clothes, since he was so gross and dirty. But he told me he didn't have anything to change to.
"I was kicked out, remember?"
And he even had the cheek to ask me for some money to buy new clothes. No chance. I told him he could wear my clothes, since some of them were quite big. At first, he refused. He said there was no way he was wearing women's clothes. So I said he either wore them or kept his dirty clothes and left my house. Ha! Of course he had no choice. And seeing him in my floral pants was hilarious. A few days later, though, he still hadn't found a job. Every night I'd come home to find him lying on the sofa in my oversized pajamas. He was so messy and lazy, and after a week, I couldn't bear it. I nagged him. You have to find a job, or how do you expect to pay me rent? And the least you can do is clean up around here. I'm not your maid. He said he'd been looking for an office job, but it was hard as he had no knowledge and experience. This annoyed me, so I suggested he apply for a delivery man position. He looked at me in horror and said, "What do you think I am?" "Oh, hello, you're a homeless boy with nothing. What else do you want?" I thought. Then I said he could come work with me in the restaurant, but he refused, saying that his friends went there all the time and they'd laugh at him. I was speechless. I said, "Suit yourself, but after 1 month, you're out of here." A few hours later, he knocked on my bedroom door and said he'd take the restaurant job, but he needed clothes. Finally, I'm glad that this boy has come to his senses. "That's great. You can start from tomorrow. I'll call the manager. And I know the exact place where you could get all the stylish clothes for free. Let's go." At first, he was so excited, but when he realized that I was taking him to a clothing donation center, his face changed. He looked disgusted and said, "No way." I smirked and said, "It's up to you. You either pick something to wear from this place, or you can wear my clothes. I've got a floral dress that would really bring out the color of your eyes." He looked so sulky as he reluctantly went through the rack of used clothes. It was so funny. But everything was only about to start. You won't believe what happened next. Stay tuned for part 2 to see how things went between Jude and I. In high school, there are always those mean girls, right? Well, turns out I was actually the mean girl, and it took something really awful for me to realize it. You see, I'm a pretty average kind of girl. Average looking, average grades, and I guess you could say I'm a little chubby. Yeah, I'm that invisible. But thank God, I had some good friends, so it's okay. I'm content with my mediocre life. But one day, I received a note in my locker. There's even a heart on it. My heart started beating so fast. Could it be? I read on and couldn't believe it. It was from a guy called Dave, and he was confessing his feelings for me. He even left his phone number. I was stunned. And then I got to the bottom of the note, and reality hit me smack bang in the face. "I'll be waiting for your call, Sarah." It wasn't for me. It was for Sarah. Of course it was for Sarah. All the boys fancied her. And who wouldn't? She was the prettiest girl in school. Plus her locker was right next to mine. So he just made a mistake. I was about to pop it in her locker when I saw her walking towards me. I tried to hide my disappointment that the note hadn't been for me. It drove me crazy to see her bouncing towards me with her blonde, curly hair and gorgeous smile. When she saw me, she started making small talk and even complimented me on my cardigan. It was so weird. What's so good about that to talk about? Was that compliment a kind of sarcasm or something? This angelic girl always gave me uneasy feelings. I bet she's that type of mean girl that's just being nice to your face, then later comes home and puts your name in her burn book. After she walked away, I scrunched up the note and threw it in my bag. Later that night, I did something insane. I texted Dave, pretending to be Sarah. I don't know why I did it, but after a few texts back and forth, it actually became quite fun. I looked him up on social media, and I couldn't believe how handsome he was. He was a year older, and so his classes were in another building. No wonder I hadn't noticed him before. Even our cafeterias were in different buildings, so he'd probably never seen me either. Not that he would notice me anyway, though. I felt so wild messaging him. I'd never done anything like this before, and it actually felt quite fun to pretend to be Sarah. I could just talk to him so freely and didn't have to overthink if I was sounding like a loser. Because in those moments, I was Sarah, the most popular girl in school, and it felt amazing. It didn't matter what I said, because I knew that David thought I was Sarah, and so everything I said to him was funny or cute. I even told my best friend Clara what I was doing, and she was amazed that I had the courage to do such a thing. I showed her our texts, and she was like, "Wow, girl, you are crazy." I continued to text him, though, and eventually I found I couldn't stop. I didn't know how long I could keep it up before I got caught, but I figured I'd get bored before then anyway. But then one day, he asked me to meet him after school, and I froze. Obviously, I couldn't meet him, nor let him approach the real Sarah in real life. So I made up some excuse about how my parents were super strict, and I'd get in trouble if anyone saw us. But he insisted, saying he had a gift for me. So I told him to leave it on top of the vending machine for me instead. To my surprise, he thought this was a really romantic idea, and so he agreed. Throughout the next week, he left me a gift every day. One day, it was a small crystal in the shape of a rose. The next day, it was a book of poetry. That was sweet. I didn't expect such delicacy from a jock. And then he asked me to meet him at the basketball game that Friday. He sounded so serious. I guess his patience had run out. Well, of course, it would be too absurd to go to the same school, but didn't see each other at all for 2 weeks straight, right? I had no other choice but to agree. But then, the panic kicked in. It was the finale of a big tournament at school, so everyone was going. And Sarah will be there too. And if Dave saw her, no, it would just be a disaster. My life would be over if they knew what I'd been up to. I asked Clara what I should do, and she was like, "What? You haven't ended that catfishing thing yet? You need to tell him now, before it's too late." She'd called me a catfish. I was so offended, so I just stormed off and said I'd make my own plan without her help. I knew exactly what I was going to do. When I got home, I raided my mom's medicine cabinet and found it, her laxative syrup. I poured a little into a fruity drink I'd bought. Obviously, I'd followed the instructions and only poured a little. I mean, I didn't want to knock Sarah out. I just wanted to give her enough, so she'd miss the game. Little did I know how badly this was all going to unfold. When I got to school the next day, I made sure I was early and put it on Sarah's desk. I heard footsteps, though, and almost jumped out of my skin. Luckily, it was just Clara. And when she asked me what I was up to, I just said I'd seen a boy dropping this off on Sarah's desk and had felt jealous, so I'd taken a look. Sarah later took it without hesitation, since receiving gifts from secret admirers wasn't new to her. Well, success. After PE later that day, Sarah drank it. But then, disaster struck. Her friends also wanted a sip, so she passed it around. And to my complete horror, Clara had a sip too. I wanted to jump in and stop them, but I couldn't. In the next class, everyone kept running to the bathroom. It was so awkward. Luckily, Clara only had one bathroom trip, and then she was fine. She thought she'd just eaten something bad. If only she knew the truth. Sarah must have drunk much more than the others, because she still looked pale after several trips. During break, I went over to her and asked if she was okay. Then I suggested she go home and rest, and even offered to help her walk to her car. At that point, I was actually more worried for her than for my plan. But, well, my plan did work anyway. Later that night, Dave texted me saying he couldn't find me at the basketball game. Well, me, meaning Sarah. I told him I wasn't feeling well, and so he said he'd send me a gift the next day to make me feel better. Well, that was the moment Clara came over and confronted me. She busted into my room saying, "I know what you did. Isn't that too much?" Then she said she'd seen the syrup in my backpack. I was stunned. But then I just told her that it was time those mean girls got a taste of their own medicine. But she was furious. She said, "You're ridiculous. Sarah isn't a mean girl. She's so sweet. She's even nice to you. Are you that blinded by jealousy that you'd sink this low to hurt her? You know what? You're the only mean girl around here." At that, she stormed off, leaving me standing there all alone. I froze there, dumbfounded. What just happened? What did I just hear? Was I the mean girl? That couldn't be true, right? Was Clara even my friend? How could she say that to me? She kept calling me catfish, then mean girl. This girl was really too much. But her words kept lingering in my mind. I thought about it. Sarah really had never done me any harm. So why was I being so mean to her? It wasn't right of me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt so guilty. I'd really let things get out of control. Why was I even doing this? It's not like I even really liked Dave. Sure, it felt nice to have a cute guy talking to me, but he was only talking to me because he thought I was Sarah. I didn't know what I was trying to do anymore. The day after, Dave had left a new gift box on the vending machine. I kept looking at it and wasn't sure if I should take it. But then suddenly, a guy noticed it, took it down, and saw it was addressed to Sarah. Then he quickly ran to class and gave it to her. It all happened so quickly, I didn't even have time to react. I ran after him to see what would happen next. Sarah and her friends were all gathered around the box and kept saying, "Dave? Isn't he your crush? That Dave Miller? Wow, girl, congrats! But why did he leave a gift for you?" I could see Sarah was blushing, and that's when I realized she actually liked him. Oh my God, I'd messed everything up! She was so happy, which made me feel even worse. Clara was right. I was the mean girl, not Sarah. I had to act quick before Sarah found Dave and they both discovered the truth. I texted Dave and asked him to meet me at the park in secret. As soon as I arrived, I could see he was there already, excitedly waiting. I hid behind a tree from afar and called him, and then I asked him to let me explain first. I told him I wasn't Sarah, and that I'd been doing this because I was just tired of feeling like a loser. But I didn't expect I'd taken this all too far. "I'm so sorry," I said to him. He was so confused and kinda angry at first, but then, after a while, he said that back in middle school, he'd been a bit of a nobody, so he could understand where I was coming from, but he needed time to process it all. When he was about to hang up, I said, "Wait!" then ran towards him and said I was the girl on the phone and that I had good news for him. That the real Sarah actually did like him too, and that all he needed to do was go and get her. He looked unsure and said,
You're not lying to me again, are you?
Then I said, "I swear, she's got the biggest crush on you. Please let me make up for this all. I'll help you." He looked so happy, and I felt better knowing I was helping this happy couple get together. They deserved each other. I even helped him choose out the next gift for Sarah. Yep, the actual Sarah this time. And ever since then, I kinda became his wingman. As for Clara, of course, I apologized to her and thanked her for being a good friend and for knocking some sense into me. And now, Sarah and Dave are officially a couple, and I even hang out with them sometimes. In fact, Dave's friend has been hitting on me, so let's see if anything happens there. Maybe I'll finally get a real boyfriend.
I always told myself I would never get married. To me, marriage seemed like the worst thing in the world, and who could blame me? My dad had cheated on my mom constantly, and I felt like it was all my fault. I once heard him say when I was a kid that he only stayed with my mom because he'd accidentally got her pregnant. So basically, he resented me. And that was what my childhood was like. My dad made it torture. I decided I never wanted to grow up to be like him, and then I would stay single forever. But then everything changed the day I met a girl named Carrie. I'm Nico, by the way. And before I get into the chaos of what happened after I met Carrie, let me just say that she was the most beautiful, smart, amazing girl I'd ever met. And I was definitely not the only guy who felt that way. However, never in a million years did I think she would hurt me in a way that was almost even worse than how my dad hurt my mom. You see, my dad cheated on my mom the whole time when I was growing up. They always argued, since my mom had suspicions of his cheating, but nothing was ever proven. Then finally, my mom caught him with his coworker, so they divorced when I was only 9 years old. It put a lot of strain on my life because I had to split my time between the two of them. And my dad was always out on dates with different women, so I pretty much raised myself when I was at his place. This really affected my relationship with him, and we never got close because he was always too busy. As for my mom, she took years to get over what my dad had done. And so it just made sense to me to not focus on girls. Instead, I spent all my time drawing. While all the other guys went out on dates, I was making comic books. Relationships just seemed too messy. At one point, my friend teased me and asked me if I was gay. But I just told him that my dad had ruined my mom's life, and I didn't want the same thing to happen to me. Instead, I focused on college and getting my art degree. So, when I met Carrie, you can imagine how life-changing it was for me. I never expected to meet someone because I wasn't even looking for it. But it was love at first sight, and I couldn't stop myself. Little did I know how much that relationship would mess up my entire life, though, and in more ways than one. We met at a comic meet and greet event. I work as a comic book artist. And when I saw her walking towards my stand at the event, I got so nervous. I'm a little nerdy, so seeing a gorgeous girl walking towards me was crazy, but we hit it off immediately. Turned out she was a big fan of my work and loved that I was slightly nerdy. So that first evening, I went against my word that I'd never date and asked her out. She was so supportive of my comic books, and it was so encouraging for me. She didn't care that I wasn't super rich or famous. She just liked me for who I was. So within a month, I was in love with her. No one had ever supported me like that before. My dad had basically been absent my whole life, and my mom was still so depressed about stuff with my dad. Carrie was the first person to push me to really chase this dream. After 4 months, I decided to propose to her. For the first time, I understood why people got into relationships. I had never been so happy. If only it could have lasted. Our wedding day was interesting, let's just put it that way. Of course, Carrie looked so beautiful in her dress, and I must admit I scrubbed up pretty well too. But there was one thing I wished I could have changed about that day. For some reason, my dad was in the worst mood. Ever since I'd met Carrie, he'd been acting even colder towards me. And I figured he was just jealous, because all his relationships had been complete failures. Honestly, of all the days for him to act like this, my wedding day, it made me so angry. My whole life, I'd put up with feeling like a burden to him. And now on my big day, he couldn't even crack a smile. I even overheard him saying something about how I didn't deserve a girl like Carrie. It made me sick that he couldn't just be happy for me. I asked Carrie to try and talk to him and get him to calm down a bit, so she did. She was so sweet and could comfort anyone. And my dad seemed to like her more than he liked me. I left it to her and made the rounds to chat with the other guests. But then when it came time to sit down for dinner, I couldn't find her. It was kind of awkward because everyone was waiting. And then just when I really started to panic, she appeared with my dad. They'd obviously been talking for a while. But at least my dad looked more relaxed, and he even smiled at me at one point, so I figured she'd done something right. At least I could enjoy the night and not worry that my dad would ruin it by saying something stupid. So the rest of the wedding night went well, and then we went on our honeymoon. It was fun, but Carrie seemed a little off. She spent a lot of time on her phone, and I'd hoped we'd spend more quality time together. I mean, it was our honeymoon, after all. There were a few times where she even pulled away when I tried to kiss her, and I started to feel insecure. Had we moved too fast? I was seriously feeling anxious. Anyway, we still had a nice holiday, and I tried not to overthink it. We got back from our honeymoon, and my dad came to visit a few days later. This was weird because he never visited me. In fact, he did his complete best to avoid me. But now that I was with Carrie, maybe he wanted to make up for lost time and make a good impression. Maybe Carrie would help my dad and I finally get close. But one day after he'd left, I found a bag with some revealing lingerie inside. I called him and asked him if he'd forgotten something, and then he just laughed and said, "Oh, it's for Carrie, and for you. You gotta keep that spark going, right, son?" I was shocked. What a weird gift to buy your daughter-in-law. It made me kind of uncomfortable. My dad clearly had no idea that this was inappropriate, though. It was so embarrassing. Anyway, Valentine's Day was coming up, and I decided to surprise Carrie. Recently, she'd been quite distant, and I figured I needed to do something super romantic to get her to notice me again. I decided to leave work early and surprise her with a rose petal bath. I even bought some nice candles, and I was thinking I'd cook her a delicious meal, too. But when I got home, my dad's car was in the driveway. That's weird, I thought. I wasn't expecting him. And when I went inside, I couldn't see him anywhere. "Dad?" I called, but there was no reply. I went upstairs, and that's when I noticed our bedroom door was closed. I opened it, and my worst nightmare came true. My dad was in bed with my wife. And no, they weren't just hanging out talking, they were full-on French kissing. I thought I was going to collapse. My whole body started shaking, and Carrie suddenly jumped up. "Nico!" she screamed, covering her chest with the sheet. "What are you doing home so early?" I couldn't hold back the tears. I seriously couldn't believe that Carrie would do something like this to me, and with my dad. To make it worse, my dad started laughing. I felt like I was going to explode, so I went right over to him and punched him in the face and asked him to get out of my house. Carrie jumped in between us to stop me from hurting him, and this just made me even more upset. Why was she protecting him? Eventually, he managed to escape and left the house. Then I asked Carrie to pack up all her stuff and get the heck out too. I never wanted to see either of them again, and I screamed at Carrie as she left saying I'd be filing for divorce right away. Honestly, I never thought Carrie would cheat on me. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I felt so betrayed. As she left with her suitcases, I felt completely crushed. I had no idea where she'd go to live now, but it's not hard to guess. My life was over. My own dad, who'd treated me terribly my whole life, had now gone and done the worst possible thing. Stolen my wife from me. It took me a while to get to grips with it all. Even now, I'm still disturbed. And I think back to our wedding day and I know that's when it all started. Carrie hadn't just cheered my dad up. She'd been seduced by him. No wonder they looked so weird that evening. The way my dad kept smiling, it all made sense now. It's been a year since the whole thing happened. And I haven't spoken to either of them since then, and I don't plan to. They both betrayed me, and they don't deserve a second of my time. I did check Carrie's social media once, and she's still with my dad. Posts all these photos of them together and calls him hubby, even though they aren't married. I talked to my uncle about it, and he said he saw my dad with another woman at the golf course one day, so I guess that's karma. Carrie cheated on me, and now she's getting cheated on. Well, that's her problem now. I think it's time for me to ignore them and to regain my faith to live a better life. God always offers what we deserve.
Hi, my name is Cammy, short for Camille, the same girl as the girl out of the TV series The Originals, and I'm 17. A few years ago, I started feeling super insecure about my appearance, and it led me to make a pretty big decision, which almost made me lose the cutest boyfriend ever. So, my two besties, Amy and Lizzie, they are so beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I'm ugly or anything, but they both have one thing that I don't have: womanly curves. Standing next to them made me feel as flat as a plank, and due to their curves, boys always notice them over me. Worse still, they even got wolf whistles and compliments from the boys, while all I received was lame jokes about my body. Talk about annoying! Hearing remarks such as, "Geez, Cammy, you're so flat. I could use you as a surfboard." Or, "Cammy, I think you should go back to kindergarten and grow a bit." Well, these words stung. I tried laughing it off, but on the inside, I was hurting so much. Things got even worse when Amy and Lizzie both got super cute boyfriends, but no boys were interested in me. Not only this, but my parents also getting divorced, so at this point I felt like I had nothing left. So I decided that I had to do something. During the summer vacation, I bought some bras and started stuffing them. At first, it kind of felt uncomfortable and inconvenient because the stuffing made me hot and even hard to breathe since it was summer after all, but I eventually got used to it. Then, I tried posting some photos of me in cute tops on my social media pages. The comments were all compliments from my lovely people. They said I looked so pretty in my new appearance. So, throughout the summer, I gradually began to stuff my bras a little bit more, so it looked like my chest was naturally getting bigger. Then, the first day of school arrived. It was still pretty hot outside, so I decided to wear a cute top to show off my new curves. When I arrived at school, Lizzie and Amy both hugged me and told me I looked great. Although they also added in that I always had. My friends were the best. Then something crazy happened. This one boy who used to tease me came over and said, "Oh wow, surfboard girl. I mean, Cammy, you're looking hot." I smirked at him, then walked away. For the next year, I carried on stuffing my bras. Talk about a hassle, but it paid off as I finally felt accepted. No one teased me anymore, and I didn't feel self-conscious standing next to my gorgeous besties. It wasn't all a breeze, as one day after school it was so hot that as soon as I reached my bedroom, I immediately took the paddings off and threw them on my bed. Talk about comfortable! I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, my mom was standing there holding my bras in one hand and the padding in the other. "Cammy, what's going on?" she asked. I turned as red as a lobster and then replied, "I just feel more confident in the padding in. That's all. It's no big deal." Then snatched the bra back from her hand. Mom let out a sigh. "Sweetie, I know it's perfectly normal to feel insecure about your body at your age. It's up to you what you do, but I just want you to know that you're perfect just as you are." This meant so much to me, so I ran over to my mom and I gave her a big hug. Although I know that my mom was right, I just still felt more confident with my padding. Then the next summer arrived, and I and my family went on a trip of a lifetime to this luxury resort in Africa. Even though my parents were divorced, they still got on great as friends, so we all went together. Okay, so stuffing a bikini top wasn't as easy as a bra, so I spent my allowance on a couple of padded bikini tops so I'd feel confident lounging by the pool. A few days into my vacation, and I met this boy called Liam on the beach. OMG, he was so good looking. And you know, my padding gave me the confidence to catch his eye, and soon he came over and started chatting to me. Turns out that as well as being hot, he was also very sweet. He told me that he'd been born in Africa and his aunt owned this resort and now his family stays there every summer. I also found out we're from the same country. Awesome! And so we started dating. We would sit outside and watch the sunset, horse ride on the beach, and go for picnics. I had the best summer ever with him. When we came back home, we kept on dating, but it was a little harder since he lived in another city. And then there was my other problem. He didn't know I padded my bras. Although we were taking things slowly, I knew he wanted to take things further. He never pressured me or anything, but I started to feel anxious during our makeout sessions. I got so down about it all. How could I possibly have a decent relationship when I was hiding the secret? I didn't know what to do anymore, and I thought my only options were to tell the truth or break up with him. Liam made me so happy, but I guess he wanted someone with curves, not some shapeless girl who was trying to be something she wasn't. That weekend, Liam would come to visit me, and I knew what I needed to do. But then something happened which took the decision out of my hands. That day, I was laying on my bed when Liam suddenly barged in. OMG! As soon as I saw him, I immediately covered my breast, but it's too late. Of course I wasn't wearing my padding, so he saw me. The real me! He looked so shocked, then ran out of the room. I didn't even try to run after him or explain because I knew it was too late. It turned out my mom had allowed him to come into my house as he said he wanted to surprise me. That night, he texted me and said that he didn't want to be with me anymore. Not because of my padding, but because I'd lied to him. He said he couldn't be in a relationship based on lies. To my surprise, he even said he thought I looked just as pretty as always, and it was my laugh, my eyes, and sweet nature that first attracted him to me. I instantly regretted lying to him. Turns out that with a padded bikini top or not, he would have approached me in the resort anyway, and we would have still been in a relationship. Now it was too late. I'd lost him for good. I knew I needed to make a change, so I ditched the padding and decided to be proud of my body. I also posted pictures of me in tops without the padding on my social media, with the caption, "Proud of who I am." The first day back to school was nerve-wracking, but luckily for me, I had Amy and Lizzie by my side. The other kids were pointing and whispering over at me, but my friends shot them dirty looks and said to them, "What are you looking at?" Then to my surprise, I was applying lip gloss in the toilets when this one girl came over to me and said, "You look amazing. I wish I was as confident as you." Yeah, so some of the boys started teasing me again, but you know what? I honestly didn't care. I only had Liam on my mind, so what they said didn't matter to me at all anymore. One of them even had awful acne, and the other had greasy hair, but I had better things to do than to make unnecessary marks about this to them. So, whatever, I was over it. Now, my story isn't finished yet, as one day after school, I arrived home to find Liam standing at my doorstep with packets of Nerds, which is the candy we were eating on the day we became an official couple. I was so surprised to see him there. He passed them to me and said, "Cammy, I'm sorry for my initial reaction to you. I knew it was wrong of me not to think about your feelings. I should have placed myself in your shoes to understand the reason why you did that. I'm so sorry. I have the most fun when I'm with you, and not having you around, well, I suppose you can say I've missed you loads. Could you please forgive me? I couldn't stop smiling as I replied, "Yes, I've missed you loads too." I ran into his arms and we'd been together ever since. Naturally, Amy was a bit skeptical at first, as she'd seen how upset I was when he ended it the first time. But once she met him, she realized how perfect we are together. Oh, and there's one more thing. Now I'm 17 and my body has changed, and guess what? I now have an hourglass figure. I guess I was just a slow bloomer, but I got there in the end. So, the moral of my story is that everybody is great just the way they are. Yes, I know you've probably heard this 1,000 times, but just try it. Stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself what makes you unique. Try to love who you are and don't be afraid to show it. Oh, and never forget that confidence is sexy. I did this and it worked. My life became the life I dreamed of. Also, be patient. Don't rush yourself and your body into something it isn't ready for, as trust me, this doesn't work. Everything comes in good time and there's always a reason for that. I now realize that I had to learn to love my body first, and then step by step my life fell into place.
Hi guys, I'm Austin, and I'm a 23-year-old college student. I guess my school years went by pretty smoothly, as I had my best friend Jake by my side. When we're not partying and living large, me and him would work part-time at this local restaurant. The pay was pretty dismal, but it funded some fun nights out at least. My story starts as many do, with a cute girl. And I'm talking Ariana Grande pretty. Me and Jake first spotted her one day in the coffee shop that we always dropped by on our way to work. Neither of us could quit staring at her. She must have noticed us too, as instead of leaving, she turned back, smiled in our direction, then walked over to the counter and ordered another drink to go. She was obviously doing this because she wanted to talk to me, so I rushed over there to start a convo. The problem was Jake tagged along too, and offered to pay for her drink. Ugh. She seemed flattered, smiled, then thanked us both. Then I was about to ask her for her number, but she rushed off as she said, "Gotta go, my Uber's here." It was such a bummer. All I knew about her was that she was the hottest girl ever, and her name was Darcy. Well, that was the name written on her takeout cup. Feeling a bit deflated, me and Jake walked back to our table. But as we passed the table she'd been sitting at, we saw a phone. I presumed it was hers, and she left it there. So I lunged for it before Jake could. He looked so annoyed. Ha! Now the chance to see her again is mine. The phone was locked, but I was sure she'd call any minute now. I wanted to wait for her to come back and look for it, but I had to get to work. I kept the phone in the pocket of my apron throughout my shift. You know, just in case she called, and also so Jake wouldn't get his hands on it and try and steal my girl. During our break time, I sat down with Jake and we looked at the phone for a bit. Yeah, I know it was locked, so there wasn't much to see. However, even on the lock screen, we could see there was a picture of a brunette girl. Why would she have another girl as her wallpaper, though? Could this be her girlfriend or something? Nah, I seriously needed to quit overthinking. I'd seen the way she smiled at me. She totally liked me. This probably was just an old picture of her when she had brown hair. Finally, as I was finishing my shift, the phone rang. I cleared my throat, then in my sexiest voice answered with a, "Hey there." Only to my surprise, she started screaming at me, calling me a thief. I tried explaining that she'd got it all wrong, and I'd meet her at the coffee shop to settle things down. She sounded so cranky, and not at all like the mild-mannered girl from earlier. Then again, I would have acted crazy too if I lost my phone. After the shift, me and Jake walked back to the coffee shop, and as we approached the place, I pulled out my phone and called the number earlier to ask where she was waiting. But then I saw a big guy pick up his phone instead. I was terrified, so I shoved Darcy's phone to Jake and told him to go return it. He didn't know anything and excitedly grabbed it and ran over, only to be stopped by that guy in front of the coffee shop. He asked, "Aren't you the one who stole my phone?" Jake was puzzled and looked at me for help, and we just mumbled out that it wasn't, that it was some pretty girl's phone. She left it behind, so we thought we would find some way to give it back to her. Then the man said, "No, it's not any pretty girl's phone. Don't be sly. We've looked at the CCTV and saw what you did. It was a mess. So are you telling me that we couldn't see our dream girl again, but be caught up in this stealing chaos instead? This sucks. Things got even worse when this big guy put Jake in a headlock. Luckily, a woman walked toward him and said, "It's okay, Tim. We can talk this out." Well, he wasn't wrong anyway. I am a pretty girl. I'll take care of it from here. Then she gestured to him to go wait in the car and leave us three alone. She told us her name was Chelsea and that the scary-looking guy was her younger brother. She gave us a chance to explain what happened. Then she told us what was shown on the surveillance cameras. In the end, we realized what actually happened. While we'd been talking to Darcy at the counter, Chelsea and her brother must have come in and sat at the table Darcy had been at. Then they quickly changed their minds and switched tables, but Chelsea left her phone there by mistake. Once this Chelsea girl realized it was all a misunderstanding, she kept on twirling her hair around her finger, and I'm sure I saw her wink at me. Was she flirting with us? I mean, she was kinda cute, but she's surely older than us, like around 30-ish. Then she said, "So how about we go hang out sometime? As I see it, you owe me a coffee at least." Was she being serious? I couldn't go on a date with her. I don't feel comfortable dating someone that much older than me. And what about Darcy? She's all I had in mind right now. I mean, I could always go and tell my brother that you guys really stole my phone, she smirked. Was she joking or being serious? I didn't know, and I wasn't going to chance it. So I spluttered out, "Sure, coffee will be good." We exchanged phone numbers with her. Later, she texted us to set up the times and places. I didn't want to meet her, so on the day of the date, I phoned Jake up and feigned being sick and told him he'd have to go alone. To my surprise, he didn't seem to mind. Instead, he sounded excited about it. Then, after the date, he came straight to my dorm, saying he wanted to check up on me, but I knew it's just an excuse. All he did was go on and on with me about how much fun Chelsea was, and that she was rich and stuff, so it wasn't just a simple coffee date. But she took him to this fancy restaurant too. I didn't expect Jake would be like that. I'm glad he enjoyed it though. Anything so I wouldn't have to go on a date with her. This went on for a while, and soon they seemed pretty serious. Whenever Jake spoke about her, he went all gooey eyes. So my boy was in love. She clearly cared about him too, and made it so he didn't have to work at the restaurant anymore. I was happy for Jake. I truly was. And also relieved I didn't have to date Chelsea. But I also felt down about it all. He was in love while my dream girl was out there somewhere, and I didn't know how to find her. And that's when my luck changed. I was at work carrying the drinks over to a table when, to my surprise, I saw that Darcy was sitting there. I must have been gawping at her as she laughed and said, "Hey, the Coke's mine." Blushing, I passed her the Coke, then said, "I don't know if you remember, but we met a few weeks ago in the coffee shop around the corner." "Sure," she smiled. "It's nice to meet you again, coffee boy." She was so cute and sweet. There's no way I could let her slip through my fingers again. So I checked to make sure my boss wasn't looking. Then I asked Darcy for her number. She wrote it on a napkin and passed it to me on her way out. I was so excited I fist-pumped the air. Through our messages, I discovered she just started an internship around the corner, and she really wanted to impress them so they'd offer her an official job. I was happy as this meant I would get to see her loads. Every time she came into the restaurant, I tried my best to make a move with her without letting my boss notice. One time, I gave her a free dessert, then said, "Something sweet for the sweetest girl I know." Cheesy, I know, but girls love that kind of stuff. There were sparks flying everywhere. I knew she felt it too. I just needed to find the courage to ask her out. Then one day, suddenly Chelsea texted me, asking why I never came to see her. I thought this was odd. So I replied that I thought her and Jake were kind of official now. To my surprise, she replied, "Come on, you still haven't properly made it up to me after stealing my phone. You know the cops wouldn't be too happy to hear that either, right? Or I could just tell my brother." I didn't want to get in trouble with either her giant of a brother or the cops, so yeah, I agreed to go on a date with her. We met at the same coffee shop where this whole phone drama started, as she said it was close to her work. This time, she introduced herself as the marketing manager of some big company. Wow, okay, that's impressive for her age. She's beautiful and successful. Maybe I really have been a bit rude to this respectable woman, so I decided to sit back and hear her out. But the next minute, she was like, Austin, I've loved you since first sight. She grabbed my hand. Jake's a sweet guy, but he's not you. What? She didn't even know me. She was crazy. And how could she do this to Jake? Then suddenly a group of people walked into the cafe. She said they were her employees and waved them over. Then told them, everyone, this is my boyfriend Austin.